Welcome back, everybody. Now, it distills a lifetime of insights from her family and community life, as well as her experience as iSangoma. It also covers critical personal and social topics such as family dysfunction. That's Nokulinda Mkhize's debut book titled ANCESTORY. Mkhize, who has been practicing as a Sangoma since 2008, joins us now via Zoom to tell us more about her book. Mkhize Kabazela, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, take us through your journey into Ubungoma and how you were introduced to your gift or calling.
It's such an old story. It's like asking somebody who's graduated from university to tell you about their first day of grade one.
Right.
It's like definitive moments in your life, but it was so long ago that the edges are a bit blurry, the memory is a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was the usual, illness, the dreams, things that were inexplicable, that my family couldn't assist me with, doctors couldn't help me, but most importantly, the dreams that guided me down this particular path. And I must say, of course, that I do come from a family of iSangoma, a family of healers, teachers, midwives, nurses, doctors, things like that. So it wasn't such a surprise, because I am coming from a family of healers and I'm African, of course. So it was difficult in the beginning, but yes, we're here today now, 14 years later.
14 years later, you're still standing. There's a variety of questions that's been asked about this particular calling and various misconceptions. So what were some of the myths and misconceptions that you needed to dispel prior to taking on this journey?
The fact that in 2022, I'm still answering questions about the myths and misconceptions about Ubungoma gives me the sense that there's still a lot of work that certain people need to do to understand izinto zobungoma and to just accept it as a part of life, because most people in the country, in their communities, they are living with iSangoma, participating in their communities with iSangoma, and so there's nothing that is jarring or shocking or unusual about it. But I do believe that perhaps more urbanized people, more suburbanized people are the ones that need to extend themselves back into their communities, which is incidentally what I talk about in ANCESTORY, to say, go back into your communities, become a member of your community, participate in your community, so that we are not having to come on television to tell you basic things about African life that you could learn just by being a member of your broader society and participating with the people close to you.
And it's the very same urbanized people, as you call them, who constantly keep on demonizing Ubungoma. Why do you think that's the case, though? Why is the ancestry being demonized the way that it is?
Look, in the book ANCESTORY, I do talk a lot about the colonial legacy that has caused the social fragmentation in the breakdown of our families, in the breakdown of our communities, and the resulting pain from that, and how as people, we have a responsibility to understand those historical dynamics in how our families are dysfunctional, in how we are living certain types of, certain realities, and how we see ourselves as African people. And so in the book ANCESTORY, I talk a lot about getting context, historical context, social context, cultural context, to understand why it is that we have certain kinds of behaviors and how it is that we can learn from the intelligence of our elders, from our communities, wherever they may be, and also take our own experience to be able to take us forward, so that we have a greater level of respect, a greater level of compassion, a greater level of understanding of one another, our communities, our cultures, and who we are as people as well.
14 years into this calling, what really triggered, the urge to write this book?
When you're sitting in Dumbeni, whether you're training or you're working, you start to see patterns that are recurring in people's lives. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of anxiety that comes with modern life. And so the repetition of those patterns and the constant having to repeat and help people understand about where they are relative to the economy, where they are relative to their families, how to maybe manage particular family dynamics, who they are as people, what does it mean to have a purpose, answering those questions over and over and over again for a broad range of men and women, of young and old, of African, of non-African people. You start to see that there's a need for somebody to stand in the gap and say, here is something, and I'm just going to push my book at this point and say, here is a guide, a beginning, here is a starting point for those difficult conversations to find our place, and to be able to locate ourselves in our history and be able to take ourselves into our futures. So this is what actually triggered the book. It was just out of pure love and just caring for the fact that people are confused, people are in pain, and people would like a better life for themselves and their families, but they don't know where to start because they don't know where they've been.
Are you not at all concerned that you will be accused of sharing something that is so sacred? As with every trade, there's trade secrets, as they call it. There's very sacred information that cannot be shared with just about anybody. Are you not concerned that, you might be tempted to share some sacred information?
Of course not. I've been doing this for 14 years. I'm very aware of what I can and cannot share. And by the way, the book ANCESTORY is not a book about Ubungoma. It's a book about life. It's a book about community. It's a book about health. It's a book about history. It's got izinganekwane in there to give us some universal life lessons. There's some history in there. I've quoted African scholars. There's some personal anecdotes in there. So of course, as somebody that has been practicing for just about half of my life, I'm very much aware of the sacred elements of the practice. And I even talk about that in the book to say, Ubungoma is a closed practice, but not a secret one. And Ubungoma is not the center of African spiritual life. And so there's a much broader context to the book ANCESTORY than just Ubungoma 1 + 1 = 2. And so anybody that would accuse me of trade secrets will not have read the book.
And why was it so important for you, Nokulinda, that you also reflect on your personal issues such as family dysfunction, and what do those entail?
It was important for me to have that conversation in the book to talk about family dysfunction, inkinga, addiction, the failures of elders in our community, the limitations of our cultural practices, and some of the, the pain of imposition of certain traditions and the misunderstanding of traditions and the misapplications of amasiko, because those are the things that are having such a big impact in the quality of people's lives, that I wanted to be able to share my perspective from the work that I've been doing, the experience that I have over the years of working with people, but also observing and being a member of my community to say, you're not the only one. It's important for people to understand that the level of suffering, the level of pain, of confusion, anxiety, and all of those things do not belong to them alone. These are broader societal issues that are having a very personal impact in people's lives, but the root of them is much bigger and much broader than personal failure. And I wanted to reiterate that in the book, that yes, there's a room for us to take accountability for our personal failures, but we also need to locate our pain as African people in the history of where we come from.
Nokulinda, I think we have lost you there. We seem to have lost Nokulinda Mkhize there. She is a Sangoma and author of a book titled ANCESTORY. She's been practicing as a Sangoma since 2008, and she joins us now via Zoom. And I do understand that we've re-established connection with her. Please do confirm if you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great stuff. We do apologize. We had a line, a break in transmission for a second. But I want you to talk to us about the use of Tinganegwane, or indigenous folk tales in the book.
I use indigenous folk tales in the book Inganegwane because, as we know, all folk tales bring universal lessons. They bring humor. They bring relatability. They bring, an understanding and a connection between human behavior, society, nature, and the absurd and sometimes complex nature of life. And Inganegwane distill all of those elements very neatly to help us to be able to locate ourselves in the broader lessons of life, in the lessons of time, and in the lessons of of isintu. And so I use inganekwane because it is a traditional method of explaining certain things, of sharing, of storytelling, of community, of family, of relaxation, and of fun. And I wanted to bring that element of storytelling back into something that can be construed as quite serious, and use, fond, loving memories of our childhood to say, let's go back to that place where our grandmothers taught us so much in fun, where our uncles told us these jokes, and actually we learned so much from them. And so I use Zinganekwane as that anchor, and I'm just basically honoring the place of storytelling as a means by which to distill information, to distill wisdom, science, sociology, human behavior, psychology, and all of that in a very simple manner, but in a manner that is utterly profound and highly intelligent.
And I would imagine there was a great deal of research in terms of, using storytelling to distill some of the stories that needed to be told. So what kind of research did you have to conduct and dig into the book? And when did you get that aha moment in that time?
There was a lot of effort that went into research, into finding, because with everything in life, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yes.
I'm not the first person to write a book about the African experience from an African perspective. Many people for hundreds of years, for as long as Africans have been able to talk and be together, they've been distilling this information, they've been sharing the science of life in many different aspects. And for the past however many hundred years that African people have been able to write in this particular way, they have been scholars who've been thinking around this, theorizing around this, sharing around this. And so with my research team, we went back into those archives to find those scholars, to find those thinkers from the 1800s, from the 1960s, even up until as recently as 2018. So we found a range of scholars, male and female scholars, all from throughout Southern Africa, to share with us what they have been researching and what they have learned. And I've put that in the book also as an indication for people to know that African people are writing, African people do think about these things, and I'm not the first or the only, and nor should I be, or will I be the last to do so.
Nokulinda, I know that there's certain people out there who've just discovered their spirituality and will now want to be in touch with their own spirituality. But the problem is, whenever they think of using the services of iSangoma, there's always been that fine line between a traditional healer, iSangoma, and a witchcraft practitioner. So people don't actually know which is which and which is more legit and which one to go to. So does this book perhaps address, those unanswered questions?
The book addresses a matter of personal accountability and community participation, because I say in the book that Ubungoma is not the center of African spiritual life. Family and community are that. And so as people are starting to learn and understand who they are, and they are wanting to find a way to articulate and express and understand aspects of African spirituality, the best place to start is with other people. And the last place you need to go is to iSangoma, because iSangoma is not a teacher who's going to just be like, okay, step one, do this, step two, do that. iSangoma exists to give very specialized interventions for matters that are beyond the scope of what a family can assist with, and for ways in which people can get specific and very specialized kind of assistance. But everything else belongs in the realm of family. Some of the things that people may be looking to need assistance with may belong in the realm of therapists, may belong in the realm of divorce attorneys, may belong in the realm of elders, counseling, the doctor, nurses, clinics, or herbalists and healers and other things like that. And so the only thing I can say to this question is that iSangoma and Ubungoma are not the center of African spirituality, and that we need to be able to understand and accept that, so that we can locate the wisdom and the support and care of our families and communities in order to be able to get the help that we need, and in order to be able to deepen into an understanding of who we are as African people.
Nokulinda, thank you so much for opening our eyes to all these narratives and dispelling some of the myths that have been associated with ANCESTORY and Ubungoma. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
It certainly has. Now, Nokulinda Mkhize has been practicing as iSangoma since 2008, and she just penned her first book titled ANCESTOry, which covers critical personal and social topics such as family dysfunction. The book also distills a lifetime of insights from her family and community life, as well as her experience as iSangoma.